Hello my friends, family, esteemed colleagues. I was asked again to address problems of hernia. So, what is hernia? Hernia is when we have a separation in a muscle and we have then inner organs protruding through this separation. Usually when we refer to hernia, it's somewhere in our abdominal wall. So most common is, let's say, the inguinal hernia, but hernia can appear in different places as well. Now, what is causing this separation of muscles? We know that the abdominal wall is composed of certain muscles that goes one way and the other way, creating a mesh. But muscles are also lined with connective tissue. So you have an inner and outside layer of connective tissue. Of course, we gave them different names, but just basically to simplify things, that you have connective tissue on both sides, and then in between you have these layers of muscles. Now, what happens with a cell, any cell of the body? We know that the body starts basically is formed from one cell that starts dividing, and then the cells start getting different properties depending in which part of the body they are going to be located. But origin of every cell in our body is the singular cell from which it started, called zygote. Well, why I'm saying this? Because the same thing that makes one cell toxic and acidic and dehydrated is going to create the same things in all the cells of the body. So whatever the culprit is, it is going to be affecting every cell in the body in a slightly different way because of the accessibility of the culprit. And so far I was proving that the culprit that creates so-called diseases or diseases of our body is the wrong vibration, which creates a deteriorating effect, or we call it toxic effect. So what is the deal with hernia? Well, when cells are exposed to toxins, they do not hydrate. Let's say if blood, the cell depends on its environment, and the environment is then composed also of the liquids that it's immersed into, which is a lymphatic flow and blood flow. Lympha is basically blood without red blood cells. So when blood is toxic or lympha is toxic, and again some say lymphatic system and lympha is the soul of the body, it is not correct. It is and it's not, because you have two different types of lymph. You have a lymph that is coming to the cell and lymph that is leaving the cell. So there is the nourishing part and the cleansing part, but it's lymph. So you cannot say lymph is a sewer system of the body. Yeah, part of it is, but part of it is nourishing system. So this is not, statement would not be correct. And when the cell is immersed in liquid that the receptor deems to be toxic, then cell basically is closing the membrane. It starts trying to defend itself. Like if you go in some area and it starts stinking very bad, so what do? You kind of squeeze, you don't want to breathe. Well, same happens to the cell. Being it a problem with the odor or being a problem with some chemical toxin. You touch something that is too hot, you pull a hand away, right? Something doesn't feel well, you kind of try to shelter yourself. Well, cell is doing exactly the same thing. And the more disagreeable is the environment, the more cell is going to tighten down, and it is going to be narrowing the membranes. Hydration and elimination from the cell is going to be impeded. Cell will not, more toxic is the environment, the less cell is going to hydrate and cleanse. And more closed it becomes, now it is going to try to cleanse, but it is not going to be absorbing. So what is going to happen? It is going to get dehydrated. And more dehydrated it gets, same like body, more dehydrated it gets, more toxic it becomes because it cannot cleanse. Same is with the cell. More toxic it gets, it means it is dehydrated because it cannot eliminate. So it becomes more toxic. And normally a well-hydrated cell is like a bowl. It's nice and tight, it's pressurized, but then more dehydration sets in, it starts flattening down, so it kind of sags in a little bit. Now, acidity changes because cell cannot, a lot of its metabolic produce is, or product is acid, and cell becomes more and more acidic. More acidic it gets, the less it can hold on the energy, because cell is also a battery cell. It holds energy, it holds electricity, and more acidic it becomes, it loses the ability holding on to energy, so electricity flows away, so it becomes strictly dependent on the constant flow of electricity being supplied through heart. Well, the more acidic it is, electric potential, electromagnetic potential of the cell is dropping, and by losing electromagnetic potential, muscle cell is going to start losing the tension, which means muscle becomes weak and brittle. Same happens also with other tissues, like the connective tissue, for example. But in a case of a hernia, we are focusing on a muscle. Because we know that muscle became brittle. And this is why hernia occurs. The strength of muscle, when cells dehydrate, they shrink, so the whole muscle fiber shrinks. So if you have a mesh done of muscle fibers and muscle fibers shrink, well, you have more openings in between them. It's not so tightly woven. And now you also have lost the tension, so muscle can easier be stretched. Often we see it, some people have skin that is very stretchy, very elastic, joints become stretchy. Well, you get the point. Now we are not talking about muscle, we are talking about connective tissue. So we are focusing with hernia, so we are focusing on connective tissue, but I'm just giving you the overview so you have the idea that a variety of so-called diseases or diseases of the body are related to the same culprit. And if you have muscle that has now thinned down, became lost tension, so it's basically like a chewing gum, and it becomes brittle because of a lower electromagnetic potential. Well, now if you exert pressure on this muscle, well, it is going to flex, stretch, and separate. And this is what causes hernia. So if you have a problem with dehydrated and acidic muscles of your stomach wall, abdominal wall, and let's say you want to lift some object and you exert pressure, well, very likely, especially if intestines are full and hard, if again dehydrated, dehydration makes the content of intestines harder, then it can protrude through the muscle wall, through the muscle of abdominal wall. It can separate and slide through it, and causing like a pouch, which may or may not be painful, and we call this hernia. Usually people that are obese, they are obese because they eat incorrectly, they don't hydrate correctly, so there is a variety of problems there. And doctors always warn people, even by pressing muscle, stomach muscle, you can feel that there is a softness and their fingers can kind of go through it. So this is danger for hernia. So when doctor is checking you out and says, okay, don't lift anything heavy because, you know, your muscle wall is out of shape. Not out of shape because you're not exercising, out of shape because the cells are dehydrated. Doctor warns you, don't lift anything heavy because you may get hernia. Women, if during childbirth, if they have dehydrated and toxic muscle cells of the abdominal wall, very often they get hernia by pushing. Okay, trying to get a child out, push, there is a child, there is a pressure, then intestines most likely also compact because the dehydration was there, so maybe a hard excrement is sitting there. Bingo! Just goes right through it. It will penetrate through the abdominal wall. Muscle tries to contract, but it's weak. There is obstacle, it just paid. Right? Things just run through it. Now, abdominal wall contains not just muscles, contains connective tissue on both ends. Now, connective tissue is softer and usually better hydrated than the muscle. And it doesn't rupture. It just creates, just penetrates with the intestine, penetrates through the other layer, and the outside layer of connective tissue, fascia, will hold it in. So the intestine doesn't go out of your stomach, but lays in between. It just penetrates the muscle area. This is not only common or occurrence or possibility of a stomach wall, but we see the similar situations occurring, let's say, within intestine, where pouches occur. Okay, we call them diverticula. And if pouches occur in colon, we call this diverticulitis or diverticulitis, depending on which type of English you are using. So, in diverticulitis, the problem is exactly the same, because the wall of the intestine, you have an inner layer of mucosal tissue, then connective tissue, then you have the muscle. They are flat muscles, but they are muscles. And then you have the outer layer of connective tissue. And if you have a hard excrement and you have dehydrated muscle, it is brittle. And by straining, you put pressure on abdominal muscles, you squeeze, and you may get the harder part of excrement making little hole through the muscle. It is not going to break the mucosal tissue. It is not going to break the connective tissue on the outside, but it goes through the muscle. It may not rip it apart, it just go in between the muscle layers. Just penetrates right through them. Same like hernia happens in abdominal muscle, same can happen in intestine. We just gave it a different name. We don't call it colon hernia, we call it diverticulum and diverticulitis. Well, it's not only there. Where else do we have muscle? We have muscles in the blood vessels. And again, blood vessel has the inner layers of connective tissue, and they have all outer layers of connective tissue, and then you have the muscle in between, also flat muscle. And you may have, usually it is in the bent areas where artery, and usually happens in artery, not in vein, because it's higher pressure there. And when you have a bend, you have a dehydrated muscle, acidic, a low electromagnetic potential, no tension, and now increased blood pressure, zooms through, on a curve hits the wall, bingo! It may create a pressure to go through the muscle again, opening the muscle layer, just sliding right in between them, and in this case, we call it aneurysm. So we just gave different names. So we are more educated. It's the same damn thing. Now, how are we going to go about a healing hernia? Doctoral approach, the scientific approach, through our modern science. Well, doctors know that muscle is brittle, and from experience, they know that stitching it does not do much, because you stitch the area where it's of separation, but the muscle is weak and it's going to separate above or below the area where you have stitched. So it may last a day, a week, a month, a year, and bam, it's going to break again. So lately, they immediately, if you have a hernia, they immediately install mesh. So they put artificial material inside and they stitch it around. So the mesh prevents now the intestine to penetrate through this muscle. Well, even this doesn't hold for long. I have a friend that had a mesh installed and the whole thing broke loose, and ultimately the treatment of our exploits is, put outside support. Belt specially designed to hold your gut. So otherwise your gut goes down to your knees. The whole connective tissues extends and you basically get gut coming out through the muscles. Obviously, the scientific approach is not the right approach. And this is why I claim that the cause of our health issues are doctors. Because as soon as they feel that there is a weakness in abdominal wall, they should tell people not to watch what they are lifting, but they should instruct people how they can stop this from getting worse and reverse the process to strengthen the abdominal wall. Exercising is not going to do it. It may be a little beneficial, but not that much. Because now when you already have a weak wall and you start lifting weights and exercising, you are most likely going to get hernia. So what do? Well, we know, I have explained what is the cause. Cause is on a cellular level, which means regular detox and hydration is not going to cut the mustard, because you need to achieve cellular hydration and detox. And best way is to follow the Cell Healers protocol, because this protocol is nothing else but a guide to correct diet and correct hydration, which is going to automatically empower the body to go into cleansing and healing process. Body knows what to do. It's programmed to do it. Just stop poisoning it and give it what it needs so it can recover. Which means drinking plasma by itself is not going to fix the problem. Because if you are drinking plasma, you are now giving the body what it needs to hydrate and cleanse in general, basically to hydrate and cleanse the blood. And when the blood is clean, then the cellular receptor is going to signal, okay, we can relax the membranes now, we can start absorbing a little bit more and cleansing a little bit more, and eventually the blood is clean enough so the receptor even gives a signal for active hydration through osmotic pump, which occurs usually only during the sleep when more energy is available because brain is not wasting it by transmitting thoughts. And the cell starts producing potassium and engaging into the osmotic process. Well, you cannot achieve blood cleanliness to a level of cellular hydration, especially osmotic one, if you are polluting your blood constantly through something that you are ingesting. So you can load, your blood can even be clean because no matter what you do, you can even medicate yourself. You can drink coffee and tea and eat incorrectly. As long as you are hydrating, your blood is going to be cleansing itself. You will feel good because when blood is clean, we feel good. We have no idea that we are toxic on a cellular or level of a tissue, but as long as these toxins are not in the blood. So drinking plasma is going to help you no matter what else do you do. But when you have a problem on a cellular level, it is not going to be fixed unless you stop poisoning yourself, which means you cannot expect that you are going to hydrate and cleanse cells if you poison yourself by eating vegetables, especially raw vegetables because they have toxin. Some of this toxin becomes neutralized with heat, changes frequency, okay, it becomes non-toxic, but some don't. And raw vegetables have higher level of toxic action on a body than cooked vegetables, which again, this could be very confusing because I always say do not heat your food, but vegetable is never supposed to be our food to begin with. Anyway, so as long as you are poisoning yourself through ingesting stuff, and one of the worst poison is coffee, not only because of caffeine, but variety of plant-based toxins which plant is producing to protect seed. Coffee comes from coffee bean seed. Same like a cow, very toxic. Okay, I proved it on my last experiment. So, as long as you are taking in toxic elements, you are not going to be achieving cellular hydration. Even, decaf coffee doesn't work. It's still from a seed. And there is always some trace of caffeine in there, but it doesn't matter. It's still seed, which has other toxins. Then there is a medication problem. If you are medicated for whatever, you may be medicated for thyroid gland and having hernia, and you eliminate everything, but you are under the impression that you have to keep using this medicine, this artificial hormone. Well, it is going to be interfering with cellular hydration. the biggest mistake is taking this poison because you don't need it. It's never a problem with your thyroid gland. It is always the toxic element. But again, I spoke about it when I spoke about hyper and hypothyroidism. So no medication. And if we do things correctly, if we eat correctly, and if we hydrate correctly, somewhere between 3 and 5 months, we should see the hernia closing down. It closes. The wall, the whole abdominal wall is getting a little tighter. When you touch it, you can feel it's tighter. And then, you can just push whatever is sticking out, you just push it in, and it goes behind already tightened wall. It remains there, and the wall keeps tightening and tightening, and hernia disappears. Similar thing is going to be with a colon. So if you have diverticulitis, you can expect a healing of diverticulums, but again, it's not something that happens overnight, and plasma is not enough. Having diarrhea is not enough. You have to stop poisoning yourself with usually we do it with plants. This is why we have diverticulitis, because we ate plants. So you change your diet, eat clean diet, animal-based diet, preferably raw, and hydrate well. And in time, diverticulitis is going to heal. Same as what will happen with hernia. Majority hernias will close within 5 months. In some people, it may take longer. It all depends how strict you are, how often you break the diet, and you do something, eat something that you should not, because one day you break diet, it may take body 3 weeks to come back to the same situation. Because of cellular memory, genetically, body immediately reacts. Okay, we are back to the same old. And then it carefully is shifting as you again become more conscious of what you eat. The reasons behind it is, of course, because the toxic food is creating harm, and body is consciously opening up again to proper hydration, not wanting to be surprised again with a toxic load, because it takes longer time to shut it down and to close down the membranes once when they are fully opened. So we have to understand body correctly, and no medication is going to help you with any of these issues, because it will be contraindicatory. Every medication works as a suppressant, it suppresses. And when you are in a healing process, you don't want suppression. You want actually body to react correctly, to be fully engaged, opened up into hydration and cleansing. And medicinal remedies are preventing it to do so. So basically it's a very simple process. Eat correctly, hydrate correctly. Yes, you will have symptoms immediately of detox, because your body will detoxify. And if you have a problem on cellular level, then you have a problem in tissue. And it's not only the one problem that your symptom shows, it is affecting variety of cells, variety of systems of your body. And when body goes into hydration and cleansing, you cannot just focus it directly to this one area that you want to affect. It is affecting the whole body. Yes, we can use our mind to help us because we can manifest. So you can put your focus with your mind in the area and you achieve faster recovery. If you get really good at it, recovery can be really fast in any kind of a health issue. But this is really training now your ego, being conscious, understanding the whole picture of creation and our so-called reality, and having a unconditional faith, which this is the toughest problem. Whenever you don't believe in something, it doesn't happen, because we manifest what we expect to see or experience. You jump in the water, you expect to be wet, and you get wet. As simple as that. You stick your hand in the fire, you expect to be burned. So you can, if you use your mind positively, you are going to greatly accelerate the process. But at the same time, if you use your mind negatively, you are going to slow down the process or completely stop it. Because ultimately, it is all about manifestation. And if you don't have faith, and if you actually think contrary, well, you are creating toxic thoughts. Your emotion becomes toxic, create the out of sync frequencies, which then interfere with the flow of energy. No healing. So one of the reasons why I'm explaining in as much detail as it can simply or be demonstrated through simplicity. The more you understand things, the more ego starts getting it, the sense of it, and the more faith you can put into the process, the faster result. If you are skeptical, you will never have any results. Why are some people always sick? Because sickness is always on their mind. Anyone who hangs around sick people and listens to them, every time something hurts, they remember, oh, he had arthritis. I think it's hurt the same way. Maybe I had, oh, he had the cancer, or maybe I have, oh, yeah, well, manifestation. So I'm in a simple way as possible trying to explain the mechanism of the robot, so the ego can get it and kind of understand what's going on and support the healing process with positive thought and expectation. More you expect it to happen, the more it is going to be happen. The more skeptical you are of it, the less it is likely that you are going to achieve healing. Okay, well, I hope this makes sense to you. And if you have any other questions, please let me know. I'll gladly address them. God bless us all. Namaste.